A goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Ruby and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hello and welcome back to The Drive-In. We're at home and on the back of 3 defeats. Are we dreading Reading? Or are the 3 points heading to the Terriers in their push to get back on track in the race for promotion to the Championship? It's Matt and it's Killer, and we're back again to guide you through what you need to know for your drive-in to the stadium. We did this drive-in episode on episode number 3, but I've not had a chance to prep this, Killer, so let's do it all again. Killer, what do you know about Reading?
Hey, Matt, for a change, I've got a couple of things that I know about Reading that I don't even know why I know it. I don't know where I got it from or how accurate it is. However, one thing I know about Reading, the football club, not the town, right, is that they've been knocked out of the FA Cup more times than any other team because they entered it earlier than everybody else, apart from Notts County, but Notts County have won it once. Reading haven't. So they are the FA Cup's biggest failures. And then I also understand that they're the only team to be promoted to the Premier League in GMT, in Greenwich Mean Time. When they were promoted from the Division 1 back then, I think it would have been. I don't know if it was the Championship, but they got like 1,020 points, a bit like Birmingham will this year in our division, and they were promoted before the clocks changed. So that's the 2 little snippets that I do know about Reading, Matt.
Very good. Let me tell you some more. Reading were formed in 1871 and are nicknamed the Royals on account of being in the Royal County of Berkshire. They were also once known as the Biscuit Men due to their association with Huntley and Palmer's biscuit makers. However, since the injuries have started rolling in at Canalside, maybe it might be apt for Huddersfield Town to adopt that nickname as well. Reading, despite being established in 1871, didn't join the Football League until 1920. The club played at Elm Park for 102 years before moving to the Select Car Leasing Stadium, or more commonly known as the Medeski Stadium to you and me. Despite recent history, Reading have only been in the top flight for 3 seasons, starting in 2007. And Reading have won the Simod Cup in 1988 and the Championship in 2006 and 2012. So the clubs have met on 60 occasions, with Reading winning 28 and Town 19 with 13 draws. The first meeting was back in 1975, which Reading won 2-0. Between 1986 and 1996, Town only beat Reading twice in 19 games, losing 12 of those. The clubs have met in every division, barring the Premier League, our top division, and Town have done the double over Reading in 2021-22, 97-98, and 1981-82. Killer, we need a quirky game memory, don't we? And I'm picking a recent one. I'm going to go for Town. Well, it's not really quirky either, but a good memory was Town 4, Reading 0 in 2021. Sorba Thomas absolutely running rings around them that day. And that game was pretty synonymous, or pretty special, really, because it really kickstarted our season and our push up towards the playoffs. Because I think, looking back, everyone will remember Ryan Schofield being stood in the north stand when he kicked the ball against Mitrovic against Fulham on the opening day of the season. I still can't believe that didn't get given as a goal kick. And we lost 5-1, didn't we? We got pasted, and we weren't very good at the. But that Reading game just changed everything, didn't it? And after that Reading game, we kind of got our stuff together and moved on and ended up being pretty decent. And we won back down there as well in 2022 when we won 4-3 with Danny Ward getting a quite nice hat trick. But that 4-0 was a really good day, wasn't it? When Town played up and give Reading a bit of a tupping.
No, it is a rare one because normally we lose 1-0 at home to them. My memories are all those kind of Billy Sharp coming and doing a job on us. We had I think we had 2 or 3 in a row where we lost 1-0 at home against them. But the other one was the final game of the good Warnock season a couple of years ago where we ended up 9 points away from relegation in the end of 2022-23, wasn't it, the season? And we played them last game of the season at home, I think, and beat them 2-0 with a Hungbo goal and my second favourite town man, Josh Karoma goal. And things were looking bright and looking up and looking championship. However, the season following, it didn't go quite as planned.
No, so players who have played for both teams. Can you think of any players, Killer, that have played for both teams? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Around about 14 players.
I can think of a few. Naby Sarr did a bit of time at both, didn't he?
Yeah.
Danny Williams, obviously, a famous moment in a town shirt that we'll never forget.
The Elephant Man,
I don't really want to swear it. The Elephant Man. And a man who will be playing probably on Saturday, Poppadomans, as he was unfortunately referred to as Joel Pereira, the keeper we had on loan. Did we have him on loan from Man United? Is that where we got him from at that point? I can't remember where he came from.
Yeah, we did. I remember Hearts fans used to call him Mr. Tickle because on account of his arms and everything going through his arms. Yeah, so the players that have played for both teams include Benik Afobe, Martin Booty, Kenny Brown, people might remember him, the former West Ham right back, Joel Pereira, as you mentioned, Simon Church, who came on loan to us in 2012. He looked rubbish for us, but great for Reading at times. Danny Drinkwater had a spell with Reading recently in 2021. Tommy Elphick, David Hartrick's favourite, had a spell with Reading in 2017. Steve Francis, one of my favourite players, played for Reading in 92-93, and Neil Warnock went and snaffled him from them, and he was a fabulous goalkeeper for Huddersfield for 5 years. Tom Ince, Sean Morrison, Oliver Norwood, Naby Sarr, Alex Smith, and of course, Danny Williams. Killer, tell us about Reading and what they've been up to recently in terms of their recent form.
In our previous driving for the Reading game at the beginning of the season, we went over the Die Young stuff. Obviously, it's still an issue where he's trying to sell the club, or is he trying to sell the club? Nobody wants to buy it, and the fans are accusing him of ripping the soul out of the club, and we've been over that before. So I'll try and stay away from behind the scenes kind of stuff. The form since we played them last time, similar. Their home form is fantastic. They are a beast of a team to play at home. I think they're third in the league when it comes to home form, but away from home, they're a total different beast. In the 17th, over the last 6 games, they are just a little bit better than us when it comes to the form. I think they've taken 7 points, whereas Town have taken 5 points. But they're a team that's another textbook team, League One team, but they have in this obviously most recent window taken Joe Taylor's agent, who was linked to signing with Town, which obviously Sam Smith, and their attacking play was kind of linked all around him. So now they are weaker than they were at the beginning of January. The only guy they've brought in is Billy Bodin from Burton Albion. He's done okay there this year. I think he's got 4 in 7 starts for Burton prior to joining Reading, but it's Burton Albion, and obviously they found him dispendable, having joined from Oxford in the summer. So Reading find himself again in a strange situation where at home they're solid. They've got some cracking players there with Nibs and Lewis Wing, who he's fantastic, and I wish he were with us. I think Town would do much better with a Lewis Wing in the team.
How has he spent so much time in League One? He's decent, isn't he, Lewis Wing? It's weird.
He's phenomenal. He's their highest rated player. If you look at every single online place you can see ratings on, Lewis Wing's far above most players in League One. He's a standout for the year, and he's grabbed 5 assists. They've got Charlie Savage is there with I think he's bagged 4 goals this year and 4 assists. So there's players there attacking wise that causes problems, and it's shown in the goals that they've scored. I think they've scored 41 goals, which is a couple more than us. Or scored 43. We've scored 41. But defensively, they aren't great. So there's opportunities there to go against them. But their form's all over the place. In the last few games, though, going into Saturday, they had failed to win for 4 or 5 games, and they were playing Bolton at home. They beat Bolton 1-0, but in the games before that, they've only lost to Stockport, Leyton Orient, and Burton. All 3 teams are in a good run of form. So whilst on paper, it doesn't look like Reading's form's fantastic, it's probably better than ours is over the last few games. So it really is. It's not a game we're going into here expecting an easy one, because Reading are not that bad.
No, they're strange, aren't they? They seem to lose players, but it never sort of affects them. It always galvanizes them, and they just kind of do really well and soldier on, don't they? All the stuff off the field, losing players, and they just continue to fight. I think you got to give Reading a lot of respect to because they're quite high in the table as well, aren't they? With regards to despite losing players, they're still 8th place, knocking on the edge of the playoffs. So fair play to Reading. So let's speak to a Reading fan. So earlier today, I spoke to Alex from Elm Park Royals, and we had a quick one-to-one. Right, so we're joined by Alex now. So, Alex, can you just give us a rundown on how things have gone since the last time we met, and how's your form?
Yeah, we're doing okay. We're just outside the playoffs. Since we last played, obviously Ruben Sellers has now gone to Hull, which went down relatively badly, I think, with our fans, and Noel Hunt has taken over. He's done okay since coming in. Started slowly, but then won 3 in a row over Christmas, but then didn't win in 3 games and, suddenly became the worst manager in history before winning again on Saturday against Bolton. So we're kind of up and down, I would say. We're sort of trying to learn to play again, as it were. I think is probably the best term for it. We look like a team which are fighting to be near the top half, but without being a team which are necessarily a team which is going to finish in the top 6, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, off the field as well. How is everything off the field? Because I think last time we spoke, there was all sorts of rumours about the former Wickham owner Rob Cohig coming in, and you guys seem to get kicked in the nether regions quite a lot in that respect. I know I've just triggered something. I can see in your face. I've definitely triggered an emotional response of sorts there. How is everything at Reading in terms of your ownership and your training ground and everything since
training ground's still there, so that's positive. Rob Cohig was rumoured to take over back in August and September. The deal fell apart, and since then there has been one new interested party, which they went into exclusivity. The deal fell apart. No one really knows why, because the club don't communicate that kind of detail to anybody. Since the Rob Cohig's deal fell apart, the details kind of came out, and it was basically all but signed. It was signed by everybody except for Dai Yong. Went over a weekend, got to a Monday when it was meant to be signed. All the money was being transferred, and they turned around, paid him all the money back for the money that he'd lent to the club over the last 4 or 5 months before that, and said, no thanks, not interested anymore, and basically told him to bugger off. And since then, Rob Cohig has tried suing Dai Yong. Dai Yong is countersuing Rob Cohig. And essentially, we've just become a punching bag for people with too much money, in all honesty, as a football club. The off the field stuff in terms of a sale is kind of beyond a joke at this point. I think most of our fans have lost faith it's ever going to happen. It's been going for 2 years pretty much by this point. I don't think I'm kind of with most fans. It feels very unlikely there's going to be a sale at the moment. If it was going to happen, it feels like it would have happened already. And we've got 5 players. We've got 5 players contracted after June the 1st, which kind of tells you everything you need to know. If we're not sold by June, the club's pretty much done. We won't. I don't think we'd start next season.
So it's very imperative, isn't it? That's done. So we'll move on to matters on the field as well. So how big of a miss will Sam Smith be, and how do you sort of expect to line up in the game on Saturday?
So yeah, Sam Smith was our top goal scorer this season so far. I think he got 11 in the league. So a massive miss in terms of actually putting the ball in the net. We lined up last weekend with our second striker, Jaden Wareham, up front, who, I'll be honest, has not necessarily impressed yet. Although he's young, he has not really hit the mark. However, he did play quite well at the weekend, and probably, to give him his credit, deserves to start again. And we did sign Billy Bodin on loan from Burton. I would kind of expect him to go into the starting lineup as a striker just to give us some League One experience and League One goals, because at the moment we just don't really have very many. So, him missing is going to be a big issue up front, but I would expect Bowden to start up front. Calvin Air-Battiment, I would expect him to start on the left, but he hasn't started since he's come back from injury yet. He started once at Burton Albion away in the last 3 or 4 games since he's come back from injury. But apart from that, he's come off the bench in the second half of games to come onto the left wing. And we've been starting either Mamadi Kamara or Campbell out on the left wing, or Garcia as well. So the left wing spot is a little bit up in the air as to who might start there. Tyler Binden was sold on deadline day, but we've loaned him back, so he'll be starting at the back, probably alongside Harley Dean, unless Amadou Mbengue is back and fit, in which case I would expect him to come straight back into the starting lineup, but there's no indication that he is going to come back for this weekend. Our starting lineup, in all honesty, is kind of just like a who's who of like who can actually play in that position, really. We don't really get that much in the way of choice or options. So it will just be a case of, are any players back and fit for the weekend? And if not, who's available, really.
Like a roll call, if you like, that we used
Pretty
to do on a Saturday. Yeah. So we'll move on then. So what just give us a sort of a quick score prediction as well before we move on to maybe a couple more fun questions.
I'm going to go for 1-1. It'll be a horrible game. I mean, Reading versus Bolton last weekend at Reading was a horrible game of football. Aaron Collins missed 3 chances for Bolton. They did create a number of good chances against us, but he couldn't put it in the net. We didn't really create anything. I would kind of expect a lot of our games this season to go a bit like that now, where opposition teams are able to create, and if they don't score, maybe we get lucky and we win. But we won't necessarily create very much because we don't have the experience or form really at the moment, either going forwards to keep creating chances. Like earlier in the season, we were really creating a lot of chances from long range and from set pieces and free kicks, and we're not really doing that quite as much anymore. I would expect us to struggle to create chances, but equally, if we do get a chance, I would kind of back us to score. So yeah, I'll go 1-1.
Okay, so Huddersfield versus Reading. There's a lot of games and history between the two, or recent history between the two clubs as well. So I know what my Reading versus Huddersfield memory is, and we're not going to drag you through that either. But what's your favourite Reading versus Huddersfield moment or favourite game between the two clubs?
I would really struggle to pick one out, in all honesty. I know you've got your one from the playoffs a few years ago, but there hasn't been, I can't, at least from games that I've been to, there has not been many positive results in Reading's favour. I think we beat you 3-1 a few years ago at home, which was nice, although we got relegated that season. And there was a 2-0 a couple of years, 2019, just after we kind of started spending big. 2-0 at your place, which was a positive as well. And that probably goes down as the 2 positive memories, really, I've got of Reading playing Huddersfield. To me, it feels like every time we play Huddersfield, we seem to either play badly or we lose. We lose and we haven't played badly anyway. But yeah, those 2 wins are probably the two positives that I could pick out of historical games against Huddersfield. I never look forward to us playing Huddersfield. I always think, they're going to give us a tough game. No matter what division we're in, it always feels like we get a tough game against Huddersfield. So
I remember playing back in sort of 2013, 14, 15, around that sort of period. And I think we tended to struggle. It feels like we struggled quite a bit. There's a couple of games where we played quite well, but still lost with like sort of plucky losers. And you always had Chris Gunter at right back, who used to sort of run rings round us from fullback and things like that.
It definitely feels like there's probably the last 6 or 7 years we've been very kind of like back and forth with home victories in particular. We never seem to travel well to Huddersfield. We don't travel well in general to anybody, but I feel like there's definitely a home bias in this fixture for sure.
Tell us something about Reading Football Club that no one outside of supporting you will know.
Oh, good question. The lion on the badge has 2 front left feet.
That's exactly the kind of answer you look for in like this.
There you go. It's based on a statue in the centre of Reading, which also has got 2 front left feet. So if you were to actually, try and get, the statue won't walk, but it couldn't go anywhere because it has 2 left front feet.
Sounds like a lot of our centre backs from history. So from the outside looking in, how do you see Huddersfield? Because we're obviously biased on this podcast. Your own clubs, you kind of see the best of them, or you see the worst of them. So it's always interesting. Yeah.
Like I said, cannot stand playing Huddersfield. If every time we play them, I think, we're going to lose. It doesn't seem to matter what position you're in the table. Doesn't matter what season we're having. I just think, we're going to have a bad time of it. This season, my kind of outside view on Huddersfield is that Huddersfield, to me at least, have done incredibly well for 80% of the season. But the problem is that 20% of the season where they haven't done well, things have basically just collapsed in on them. And it feels like we're in the midst of that 20% at the moment. Fingers crossed still that it will be that way on Saturday. And that 20% where you don't do well, basically the world is falling in around you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of get the impression that that's sort of what Huddersfield fans end up thinking, is that the world is ending when you're losing games. Whereas the reality, I look at it and think the reality is you've lost against the relatively okay Bolton side, who are doing okay, badly in their expectations, but not bad. Lost to Birmingham, not really that unexpected, and then yes, a bad loss against Northampton. But I don't think it's not. I don't think it's quite as horrendous as maybe think. I don't think it's quite as horrendous as people make out from just looking at results. But obviously, I'm not the one watching the games, so what do I know?
Yeah, we are very, especially this year. I think it's sort of expectations versus reality, isn't it? And then when the two don't align, it's I think people tend to lose themselves a little bit. That's it from me, really. Alex, thank you very much for joining us, and best of luck, especially with the ownership issues, and hopefully Reading are back to full tilt before too long.
Thank you very much, Matt. Cheers.
Okay, so thanks to Alex for that. He fancies a 1-1 draw, does Alex, on Saturday. Right, Killer. I think what's next is, after Alex's little time for us there, let us go to your favorite section, and we will go, my friend, to the tactics board. You see, I buy so much time while I'm setting that up, don't I? Right, mate, let's have a look. So Reading go usually 4-3-3, don't they? They're a 4-3-3 sort of team. So I don't think it's going to change much from now to Saturday. So they usually have Joel Pereira in goal, don't they? So Joel Pereira is going to, I think people are going to expect him to be absolutely rubbish, aren't they? And basically fall to bits like he did for us. But he's actually doing quite well over at Reading, and they see him as a number one goalkeeper. So he seems like he's managed to finally get his bits and pieces together and move on. They do play 4-3-3. Harley Dean's the experienced centre back who plays in there, and he's started at the minute. Tyler Binden's the interesting one. He's actually a really talented young defender. I think he's just got a move, hasn't he? But they've sort of loaned him back. But he's a New Zealand international. I think it's Forest, isn't it, where he's gone to, and they've just sent him immediately back on loan. But he came from the Los Angeles FC Academy, which is really strange, to Reading, to their academy. And he's been a phenomenal player for him. He's 20 years of age, decent in the air, and a real sort of a future decent, maybe a future Premier League player is Tyler Binden. Is very good. Michael Craig, right back. He's a little bit older, a bit more experienced. And then they've got a youngster at left back, a 17-year-old who's playing left back is Andre Garcia. So that's where Reading are at the minute. I think they sold another defender, didn't they, a little while ago, and they've had to throw him in from the academy, and he's doing quite well. So the 17-year-old's playing at left back. 3 in midfield is your man Lewis Wing. Usually sits in the middle and dictates. They've got Mr. Savage at left central midfield, Charlie Savage, Dad's a Whopper, etc., etc. And then Harvey Nibbs usually plays in midfield, kind of on the right. He's a top scorer, isn't he, with 9 goals, and he got the winner against us down at their place as well, which was a complete mess. But he kind of either plays on the right wing or right midfield, and he's a sort of force for them. He's a good runner, a lot of legs, and he's awkward, isn't he? And he'll look to ghost in and score goals. Up front, Kelvin Batchaman can play on the left, but I don't think he's quite fully fit yet. So the man who's been playing on the left-hand side instead of him is Mamadi Kamara. On the right is usually Chem Campbell. It's a strange name, isn't it? Chem Campbell. I don't know if it looks like it's short for chemical. But he usually plays on the right wing. And then up front, because Sam Smith has left the club, and no, he hasn't followed Joe Taylor to Huddersfield. That was Joe Taylor's agent, who is about a foot smaller than Sam Smith. But he's been replaced by an academy player as well, 21-year-old Jaden Wareham, who has come in from, I think he was at Woking. So he's played for, so he's a Reading Academy player, ex-Chelsea Academy as well. And then he's had a little loan spell with Leyton Orient a couple of years ago and Woking as well. So I think that was pre-Chelsea Academy, actually, Woking. So he's got a couple of games under his belt. He's got 37 appearances for Reading, but he's only scored 3 goals. So no Charity FC, please, on Saturday, killer. But Town, we're recording this on Wednesday evening, aren't we? So the press conference hasn't happened yet. We're hearing rumours of injuries to Ruben Roskin and Reece Healy. I can't confirm if they're true or not at the minute. I don't know. It's best to wait for the press conference. Roskin, though, I'm not sure about Healy, but Roskin did injure himself, didn't he, against Northampton, and he went off at half-time. I don't know if that was tactical or whether it was an injury. I don't think they confirmed that, did they, after the game? But he did seem to go down with a knee injury, which would make him the 27th Town player injured this season in what is an insane season. It's just unbelievable, isn't it? So Tom Lees could be back this weekend. He didn't play against Northampton because his mask hadn't arrived. League One issues, I guess. In goal, it has to be time for Nichols, surely. I mean, Chapman for me has been out of form a little bit. I don't want to be too harsh on him, but I think he was quite well protected from sort of October to December. That he didn't have a lot to deal with in terms of shots on target. I think it was the 3rd lowest in the division. So his shot save percentage is quite low because he's not had a massive amount to do. And then when that's kind of ramped up a little bit recently, I don't know if it's pressure from Lee Nichols being on the bench, but I think he perhaps will be disappointed with a couple of goals that have gone in recently. But that's not to say he hasn't done a good job, and he's done a job which has far exceeded everybody's expectations of him when he went in. So he has done particularly well. But I think his main selling point, Killer, is his distribution. But that seems to have fallen by the wayside at the last couple of weeks. I don't know if it's instructional or some kind of instruction, but it's just dipped recently. And I don't know if it's the going a little bit longer or whether he's just been or just having a blip, like we say. But I think Lee Nichols has to come back in personally. I don't think Duff will change it. I just the rumours Lee Nichols doesn't want to be here, and they are rumours, I'll stress that. If those are true, then you wouldn't want to play someone who doesn't want to be here. So I could understand why he might, if those are true, I could understand why he might keep Chapman. But for me, if Lee Nichols is fit or anywhere near fit, he has to come back in. He's the best goalkeeper at the club. Back 3, mate. Is the Phantom of the Opera ready? That's what we want to know. Is the Phantom ready? This is interesting, isn't it? Because much depends on Roskin on the left. Lonvike, we know, won't be ready. Brodie Spencer will end up playing left wing back, won't he? I don't think he's going to change system. I know we've brought in Chinweri from Wolves, but I don't expect him to start. I expect him to be more of a game changer, if you like, and as someone who facilitates the changing system when things aren't going well in Duff's preferred 3-5-2. I think what will happen is if we need to go 4-3-3, then we'll throw Chinweri on one side and maybe Karoma onto the other, possibly. And then you've got two natural wide, Karoma's more of an inside player, isn't he? But you've got a natural wide player to go with Karoma just for better balance. And I think that's why they brought him in, just to facilitate that possible change. But I think they'll stay with 3-5-2. I think the back three will be Tom Lees if he's fit. And I think Balka will go back to the left of the three. And I don't think he's going to drop Matty Pearson, although Matty Pearson's had a little dip, hasn't he, over the last couple of games as well. There was the issue where he's shushing the crowd and what have you, which the people in the Kilner didn't like. I've not seen it, but I just laughed when I heard it. Imagine having the ball and stopping just to tell someone to shut up in the crowd. It's amazing. It's an amazing
Especially when we've been awful. That takes balls.
Weird scenario. Yeah, it's a weird scenario. I wouldn't mess with Matty Pearson. I reckon it could deck half the majority of people in the stadium. I reckon he's quite solid, to be fair. So I think Lees will come back in. I think Balko will play on the left. If it aren't true, then I think Spencer might play right centre back, but if they are, I think Pearson plays, and then you've got Spencer on the left, Sorensen on the right, which again doesn't give you the balance ideally you'd like. Herbie Kane played well when he came on against Northampton, and when someone tends to come on and play well, Duff keeps them in, doesn't he? So I think Kane plays. Hogg seems to be the natural pick when Kasumu's not there at the minute. So I think Hoggy stays in the team because Kasumu, we believe, isn't ready, which means Ben Wiles is your number 10 instead of Evans if he's fit. So he's missed the last few games with a few stitches on top of his foot, hasn't he? So hopefully Ben Wiles is ready. And up front, oh dear, it never stops the worries up front, does it? So Bojan Radulevic's gone out, and I'll be honest, it's a decision I don't really agree with. I know he's not been great. He scored 2 goals. He's cried both times, and he doesn't chase things down. He's not quick, but he's genuinely the only who is half comfortable with his back to goal and linking things. And it's important to have that pivot there. And we've talk about every week, don't we? And we've sent out the only pivot player we've got, and it's just like, apart from Danny Ward, who's injured, and it's just like, well, if you're trying to create a partnership up there, you need a facilitator of sorts, and he's the only one who can facilitate a partner, or for my money, or bring out the best in a forward. And some people will comment and say the other forward only looks so good because Bojan's so bad. I know people will probably put that in the comments, won't they? I know I can see what's coming there, but I just look at it and think, do Marshall and Healy play well together? I don't know. We'll see. But do Marshall and Taylor, Marshall and Charles, it's too similar for me. And if you don't have a pivot who keeps the ball high, I don't see any of the partnerships working. But I think Marshall starts. Marshall's been really good when he's come off the bench recently, Killer. When he starts, less so. But I think he's earned the shirt over everyone else up front. I think he's been the best striker over this period. His partner's interesting. I could see it being Karoma, you know. I could see him going back to, if Karoma's fit. I know he's had the quad issue, but I could just see him going back to Marshall and Karoma because we're struggling to get behind. And Dion Charles doesn't seem right either at the minute. He's not quite hit the heights. Bojan's gone. Freddie's not going to play, but he's going to be back on the bench. Reece Healy, even if he's still around, he doesn't seem to be trusted to start. So it's either going to be Dion Charles and Callum Marshall, or Callum Marshall and Josh Karoma, isn't it? You would think up front, mate.
You'd think so. But Matt, I just... First, we'll start with Nichols. I think we need a spark from somewhere. I feel like the team's dropped. I don't think Chappers has done anything wrong. I'm with you on his distribution not being as good as it was at one point, and I just don't think he's done anything wrong. I know we can talk about the second goal. Was it the second goal against Northampton or the first goal where... No, it was the second goal with ease where he's prodded it under him. Where you can say, I should have done better on that. And I think that's a hangover from the game before where he went around him. And he's kind of, I'm not going to go out all the way. So he's made indecision there is costing. I think Nichols has to come back in as long as he's going to be here next year. Like, I think if it's understood that he's not going to be here long term and Chapman is the answer, I'd stick with Chapman. I'd 100% stick with him. I don't know if we will. Duff does seem reluctant, doesn't he, though, to change keepers and change personnel so often. But I just can't help but feel that this is going to have to be the game. If Duff is going to change the system at all, it has to be this one, Matt. I think getting rid of Bojan Radulovic could suggest or hint that there's a change when it comes to how we're lining up. Because, like you say, of all our strikers, I think he's got to play with somebody else really up top for it to work. Not that I think Radulevic's good before everyone starts jumping. I think he's terrible. I think he's been terrible. And will go down as one of the biggest flop signings if we don't see him play for Town again, based on how he came in, the fanfare Cartwright gave him, and how he's played since he's really joined us. That doesn't say that we should get rid of him at this point, though. I find it quite strange. And what's the pronunciation, Matt? We're going with Chinwere. Is that what we're going with the
Chinwere? Well, until I haven't really looked into it, but it looks like Chinwere to me, or Chinwere.
We'll go with that. But he's an out-and-out winger, Matt, which tells me you're just looking at Chinne. Let's go with Chinne. I like Wiles there. Chinne, right? We'll go with Chinne. But maybe it's a 3-4-3, Matt, we're looking at here. That's a way we could shift it a little bit. I wouldn't personally. I think I'd be going to a 4-2-3-1 with Wiles back in that 10 central, Karoma wide left, Marshall wide right, and probably Charles down the middle. Because I think we just have to change something. Now, Reading, last time we played them, though, Karoma and Marshall started up front. And whilst we did lose away from home 2-1, we actually were quite good for that. In that game, we were the better team. And things just kind of went against us. We could have gone 2-1 up again after half time. I think Pearson scored a goal from a set piece that was ruled out for next to nothing. And Leeds had a chance.
Yeah,
remember, we had a
Longback was offside,
games.
wasn't he?
Yes, he was. And we had a patch of games where Leeds missed a chance game after game after game from 2 yards out. There were 4 or 5 in a row where he just kept missing from corners. And Reading, that Reading game away from home, we should have won. We should have won that game. We didn't. We found a way to lose it, unfortunately. But it was with Karoma and Marshall up top. So if it is a front two, Matt, I think you're right. I think that's what we have to go with. Hoggy has to play in that middle because he's been, for me, the most solid centre midfielder we've had for the last few games. But Kasumu is back in training, and Duff does like sometimes throwing people in when you don't expect it. But I think we'll have to wait for the conference tomorrow. But I feel this game's massive. I think this game will show us if there is any willingness to deviate from this 3-5-2, because up until now, Duff's never had to. But if you're looking for a time to change it, this is it. A team that aren't great away from home, not in the best of form. We need a spark from somewhere. It's this one. And maybe it's me wishing it more than thinking it, Matt. But it's just a possibility this weekend, I think. And it's just important to consider it. Because he swapped to it at half-time, didn't he, against Northampton? Or it's a 4-4-2, 4-3-3, depending on how you saw it play in that second half. But there's just these little moments creeping in where I'm thinking that he may change it. Not long term. Maybe it's just until the summer, till he gets more of his own boys in and he can kind of get what he wants. But right now, it's triage moment, in it, where it's just not happening, and we need some sort of creativity somewhere. It's a big ask for Duff to find that this weekend.
Who'd you play at right back then, if that's the case? Because we hear Sorensen's not very good at right back, and he's better at wing back and midfield, if you like. Do you keep him there because it's Reading who are coming with a slightly weaker away, not to disrespect them, but slightly weaker away record? Or do you go back to Ollie Turton, maybe?
I'd go with Ollie Turton. I think Turton defensively is fine. I just think going forward he offers you next to nothing. But when you go with 4 at the back, you can kind of allow it. You can get away with it a little bit more. So I'd go with Turton. Defensively, he's as good as we've got, I think, in the back 4, back 4, back 5, whatever, off ball, on ball, something else in it. But Sorensen isn't defensively great. So it's a bit of a. I don't think Sorensen fits in. This is a problem, isn't it? We've got a team that's kind of half 3-5-2, half not 3-5-2, and he's trying to figure everybody in. I don't know, but I'd probably go with Turton as the right back and Spencer on the left hand side, to be honest, if he did shift.
Balker and Lees, would you say, in the middle?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's particularly the way we think we will line up. What score are you going for in this one?
Well, I've actually had a look at the supercomputer. I've kind of taken it away from us because we've been terrible recently, Matt, on our predictions. We've been off by miles. The supercomputer has it down as Town winning 2-0 with a 70.7% chance of Town winning. I've got not enough confidence. I don't have that much confidence in Town. I think Reading will, having lost Sam Smith, and because they played through him so much, everything with Reading going forward were quick crosses, as quick as possible, getting into him and playing off him. And Nibs picked the ball up off the kind of second bounce and scored quite a few goals that way. Same with Savage. He's not there anymore. And whilst they beat Bolton 1-0 in the last minute, it's a different task to come to us, I think, and play the way that Reading normally play. So I think they'll go more defensive, even more so than they've been recently because of having lost Smith. So I think it'll be to Town to break them down again. And I agree. I see a 1-1 draw in this one, Matt. I don't. Yeah. This is if we go with the old 3-5-2. If we play the standard way, 1-1.
I'm going to go 1-0. I think we have to win this game. I've said that quite a lot recently. Reading aren't as bad as they should be, if you know what I mean. They could be a lot worse than what they're doing. I think you've got to give them a lot of respect. I think they'll be tough to break down. I think it'll be a horrible game. But I'm going to go 1-0 to Huddersfield on this one. Goal scorer for you? I'm going to go with Tom Lees. Why not? The Phantom.
It's about time, innit? Yeah, just for his mass celebration. That'd be fantastic. I'm not going to go Walsey. I'm not going to go Koroma because that's too predictable for me. Maybe it's maybe it's Charles's time. Maybe it's Charles's time to yeah. He hasn't looked like he's even been close to scoring really for us. So that's what I'll go with. I'll go with Charles for this one.
Okay, so we'll have a look around the ground as we always do to finish the episode because there's a lot of games going on as always in League One, and the first one is on Friday night. It's Mansfield versus Northampton, which doesn't really affect us massively at the moment. So we'll move on. Charlton versus Stevenage is an interesting one on Saturday. Stevenage seem to be an awkward team to play against at the minute. Charlton are closing in on us. I think they're about 4 points behind now. So that's going to be interesting. That's an earlier kickoff, as is Stockport versus Barnsley. Could probably do with a draw in that one, maybe. And then you've got Bolton versus Crawley, which you would expect Bolton to win and continue to close their gap on the top six. Burton versus Blackpool, and Burton have picked up that little striker from Burton who causes a couple of issues. He's starting to score a couple of goals, and I've kind of got my eye slightly on him. Burrell, if we give him a bit of a flair. But yeah, Roman Burrell, he's got 5 goals this season, and a couple of those have come throughout January. He's got 3 in January. In fact, he's got all 5 in January. He got 2 against Reading, so he's starting to get a little bit better. So he's in future weeks. Huddersfield versus Reading, which we've just covered. Lincoln versus Cambridge. Lincoln need to get back on track, really. Peterborough versus Birmingham is postponed. Rotherham versus Shrewsbury, and then Wrexham versus Leyton Orient is postponed according to FOTMob as well. But then then some games again on Tuesday as well, with Birmingham against Cambridge. Stockport will go to Bristol Rovers, which will be interesting again. But go back to this weekend again, mate. I think the key ones, Huddersfield have to win this. Other than that, I'm looking perhaps the Stockport and Barnsley game as maybe the pick there, and I think that'll tell us a lot about how the table's going to shake up from now to the end of the season, how both teams perform in that.
Absolutely. I actually think ours is the biggest game this weekend for everybody around the top part of the table. If Wrexham and Birmingham, like I say, aren't playing until later on, it's if Reading are real contenders, especially having lost Smith, and it's if our bad run of form is actually like a systemic issue and not just bad form. We've had one earlier in the season and we kind of got past that and went on a good run. But second time in a season, is it something major? I think that's what, if I was an independent fan, obviously not involved with Town, that's what I'd be looking at this weekend. But I want to see how our man Jordan Rhodes does, Matt. He's got himself a nice little shift to Mansfield, which is quite surprising, really, on how he's done at Blackpool.
There were some nasty rumours that he might end up at Bradford.
To see how Jordan does, is there?
There's some nasty rumours he'd go to Bradford, which thankfully never materialised.
Thank the Lords that I couldn't have handled that. I'd have been really upset. I'd have been look good in those colours. Oh, do you know what? Even thinking about it, Matt, now has put me on a bit of a downer. No. But no, it's all about us. It's all about us because, like you say, it is a must win. Because if we don't, that outside the 7th, 8th, obviously, because Reading are 8th, chasing us down, it'll get tougher if we don't win this weekend. We're the one that matters.
Absolutely. So, if you fancy having a go at the score, just let us know in the comments what you think this game will end up at the weekend. But from me and Killer, thank you very much, and we'll be back with the review show after the game against Reading.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.